I thought that I was like pretty good at math.
Yeah.
Ended up going there, and then I was like, oh yeah, there's so many people. Might not be in the hundreds or thousands, but there are people who are better than me, right? And I always knew that I wasn't like going to be the best student in the entire country at math.
The following is a conversation with Sunny Sahu. Sunny is a recent graduate of the University of California-Berkeley, where he majored in both mathematics and computer science. Expect to learn how Sunny made it into the top 60 math students in the entire country through the USA Math Olympiad, how he got a full scholarship to the University of California-Berkeley, and why he decided to break it and will pay every penny back, why he's doing a PhD in machine learning at Cornell, and finally how Sunny got and turned down a $500,000 quant job offer at Headlands Technologies. Sunny's a really special guy. He's basically successful in every single area of tech, whether it be academia, research, quant, software engineering, or startups. He's done it all. This is episode 2 of the Liftoff podcast. Welcome aboard.
3, 2, 1, liftoff.
So Sunny, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here. Yeah.
Awesome. What happened to you in 6th grade math class?
Yeah, so 6th grade math class. I was just sitting there like bored out of my mind, not really learning too much, and just because of that, goofing off a lot, just not really enjoying the time that I should be having learning math in 6th grade, learning some fundamentals. So that was very boring, but then also it was like an insightful experience for me to learn that I should be going out and learning things on my own if I really want to broaden the education that I'm getting. So it was a very important experience for me as well.
Was there a specific thing you explored outside of school in 6th grade?
I would say 6th grade math in general was pretty boring in its whole. At my middle school, a lot of the 6th grade math was pre-algebra, basic things that most 6th graders are taught to learn, and algebra is obviously a very fundamental skill, but I had already have picked it up before. So what I started deciding to do is learning some material on my own, started getting into a little bit of competitive math. I wasn't really into computer science too much at that time, but was starting to understand a little bit of what computer science was. I always liked playing video games. I think everybody at the beginning who really liked computer science, they wanted to like build a game or become a game designer or something of that nature. So I always knew I was interested with doing things with computers, but I wouldn't say that I was really interested in computer science at that time, but was starting to get into it.
Yeah. So do you think 6th grade math was kind of like the moment or the year where you realized, like where you began your exploration of math outside of like the common curriculum and even computer science?
Yeah. I definitely say that that's the case.
That was the inception.
Yeah.
Okay.
That was definitely the case. In 5th grade, actually, how my classroom at least was structured was our teacher, she actually just put me and another student to the side. So we actually didn't learn anything that had to do with 5th grade math. We were accelerated in that sense. So we just sat in the back doing worksheets. So in that time, we also started to pick up a few new things. Maybe instead of learning pre-algebra, we were learning like algebra 1 or geometry, something like that.
And how many years ahead do you think you were in 6th grade? Like, let's say 6th grade math is introduction to algebra, maybe even like not even that level for these kids. Like, how many years ahead do you think you had sustained around that point?
I think that over the summer going into middle school, I self-learned a lot of material. I'd say I don't remember too well, but I'd say that I would be able to do at least basic calculus in 6th grade.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So
holy shit, dude.
Yeah. So I really kind of did it because I never really felt challenged enough, and I really enjoy math. And I was just picking up all the content that was available on Khan Academy. Of course, I'm very grateful for that resource. Without that, it would be very hard to, there's great resources on the internet, but Khan Academy just makes it really easy for you to just sit down, watch a video, do some practice problems.
That's great, dude.
Yeah.
So describe to me like what, around this age, I mean like 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade, you had started to kind of like experience math on your own. You were going through Khan Academy. You were doing some kind of like maybe thinking about Math Olympiad. Did you do math counts at all?
I did not do math counts, but yeah, I started thinking about Math Olympiad. Started thinking about things like AMC, AME.
Did you do AMC? Was it AMC 8?
Yes, I did AMC 8.
Okay.
Yeah.
So tell me about how Math Olympiad changed your life in high school.
Yeah. So Math Olympiad was very, very like, I wouldn't say life changing, but in terms of like getting exposed to different people that were in my district or in other districts, and really kind of getting a community with math. That was not a thing at my middle school. It was not a thing in my high school either. When I started doing Math Olympiads, I didn't have anybody else there to really, practice with. It was just me on my own, learning the material, learning all these techniques and concepts that are obviously not very standard in the curriculum. The concepts might exist, but the concepts are, no
elevated. One's teaching these kind of like high level problem solving skills in your high school classes.
Yeah.
And very few students are even interested in learning that level of mathematics.
Yeah.
Tell me about, just to explain to the audience, like what were your results here? Like how far did you go in terms of Math Olympiad? And kind of like talk a little bit about what Math Olympiad even is if the audience is a little unfamiliar.
Yeah. So I let me talk about Math Olympiad first. Essentially what Math Olympiad is it's a series of competitive math competitions with people. It starts off in your district, might go to your state, and then it can also go to the national and international levels. Essentially, the problems they can be solved with just high school math techniques, algebra, geometry, trigonometry.
Do you even get to calculus here? Usually not, right?
You might. I don't remember too well, but
so it's kind of like at that pre-calc
level.
Yeah, for the most part.
There's obviously things you can do. You could pull techniques from more advanced math if you want to. It's obviously not necessary. I don't think that they're expecting you to do that too. There's like very standard techniques that they teach that are within the realms of like high school math. So I started off with AMC. That's where most people start off.
That's the entry level to this kind of thing. AMC 8, 10, and 12.
Yeah. So those are the entry level tests. If you get past a certain cutoff score there, you make it into AME. You take that test. It's very similar, but again, the questions are harder.
Yep.
If you make a cutoff for that test, then you can make it to USAMO.
Okay. And how many kids are making it that far? I mean, like, at least in my high school, a lot of kids are taking AMC. You'd have like a handful maybe make it to AME or whatever. And then I don't know if I knew many people at all who even went to the USAMO level.
Yeah. So in my district, I was the only one that made it to USAMO.
Okay. How many were making it to the AME level?
AME, maybe like around 5 to 10 kids.
Got it.
AMC, obviously,
it's
open. Yeah. So, and there aren't even that many people from Illinois in itself that qualify for USAMO.
Yeah. How many were there?
Maybe like 5 to 7 people. Yeah, there wasn't that many people that qualify.
So you were in like the top 10 kids in math in the state of Illinois around this time.
Yeah, around this time. Okay. Yeah. So I actually started off at USA JMO when I was in like 9th, 10th grade. And then after that, you can actually qualify for USAMO. So
USAMO is like 11th, 12th grade. And this is like a national level competition, right? These are like all the brightest math kids in the whole country are all coming together and doing this.
Yeah. After USAMO, you can obviously make it further than that. You can make it to like USAMO
or whatever.
Yeah, you can make it to USAMO camp, and then they have like exams there, cuts there, and then you can obviously.
This is like the Olympics of math at this point.
Yeah. Okay. I ended up making it to camp, but then after that, the competition just grew exponentially. It's really hard to keep up. Like some of those kids have then gone on to like, I've actually talked to a few of them, like maybe like a few years ago, but they're now at like Harvard, MIT. They now are probably looking to graduate school for math.
Yeah, these are the brightest math kids some of the brightest kids in the world. Who are doing at this level.
Yeah, and then they've gone on to take like the Putnam at whatever college they're at, and that's even harder than USAMO. Like the average score there, I think, is like a 1 out of like 20 or 40 or something like that.
Average is 1. Okay.
Yeah. So that's a harder test, and some of them like do really well on those exams also. So yeah, it just shows like the level that there
are
is
different levels
to math. So, yeah.
So what was camp like? What was it like? Because we've talked previously, and you said that you were the best kid in your high school in math, and with your 6th grade experience, there just wasn't that much competition. And so like go to camp. What was that like for you?
Camp was really tough. Obviously really bright people there. And I wouldn't say that the content itself was becoming really hard. It was just that there are so many tricks that they taught, but in real time when you're taking these exams, some kids would just pick it up. Like, this is a trick that I need to use. And you would ask them, how do you know about this trick? Oh, like it was just like a insight, like intuition that I had. And I don't think that I think that they have that intuition because they've been with the problems for so long. They've been doing these types of problems for so long that, eventually you will get some intuition. Just like if you practice anything for like 10,000 hours or more, you will soon become like an expert.
Like Steph Curry is not thinking about the steps to a 3-point shot. Like
exactly.
It just happens at that point.
Yeah,
and these kids are so high level that they probably don't even know why they notice all these problems.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. We'll get back to talking to Sunny in a minute, but I need to tell you about the importance of writing an incredible software engineering resume. It's the first step to landing an interview at any company. And if you feel like companies never send you that first round interview, it's probably because of your resume. Some of the best ways to improve your resume are by emphasizing action words, using metrics, and keeping it professional. And you can do all of this in today's sponsor, BeamJobs. BeamJobs is the best resume builder in the world with over 2 million resumes created. And people who have used BeamJobs have been hired at companies like Google, Meta, Stripe, and much, much more. One particular feature of BeamJobs that I absolutely love is their AI resume checker. You can upload your resume and it will do an AI teardown and give you tangible ways to improve as well as a resume score. So I just uploaded my resume and it gave me a resume score of 93, which is pretty good, but it gave me some great tips on avoiding filler words, which could take my resume to the next level. If you use my link in the description, you can access the AI resume checker completely for free. It's normally paid, but if you use my link, you'll get it completely, absolutely for free. You can use the link in the description, or you can go to tinyurl.com/beamaman. That's tinyurl.com/BEAMAMAN. BeamAman. Thank you to BeamJobs for sponsoring this episode. And back to the podcast.
That was actually really, really eye-opening because, I thought that I was like pretty good at math.
Yeah.
Ended up going there and then I was like, oh yeah, there's so many people. Might not be in the hundreds or thousands, but there are people who are better than me, right? Yeah. So, and I always knew that I wasn't like going to be the best student in the entire country at math. But it was still eye-opening to see like,
just
there's
to face it, just to be around these people.
Yeah.
How did you change before and after camp?
Before camp, I would say that I took things a little loosely in terms of like math. Like I still learned math for fun after camp, but camp actually gave me a lot of strategies and techniques to how to approach problems. And I still think that I use those approaches like every day.
Okay.
Like approaches when it comes to like taking graduate math classes. How do you like approach problem solving there? When it comes to like even computer science types of problems, like, we have this like data structures and algorithm problem. Like, how do we go about approaching this problem? There's like a series of steps that you want to take to be able to approach the problem and solve it eventually. And this like linearized way of thinking about problem solving, and then also how to like gain intuition about problems by tackling like smaller subcases or things of that nature. Those are things like I probably would have gained, but not as fast if I didn't go through camp and all that type of stuff. So that was it was a very big moment for me.
Yeah. It like equipped you with tools that have served you for the rest of your life in terms of your technical skills and the ability to do like high level math and computer science.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So kind of going back through to your high school, you did USA Math Olympiad camp. How did you get your machine learning internships in high school?
Yeah. So My machine learning internships. So still is a company called Northrop Grumman.
Yeah.
The very big defense contractor for the U.S. government. And at the time, sadly, they don't have this program anymore. But when I was in high school, they had this program called the STEM Mentorship Program. So essentially, what this was is, you go through a formal application process, grades, transcripts, like that sort of stuff. Take a formal interview, and that interview is just basically about like explain a science concept to
Okay.
us and how you can apply it to like a DoD setting. How can you apply it to just like any general setting that you want? They just want to see that you're competent in explaining science to people who understand science but may not understand
Yeah.
exactly what the topic is. Um, and this mentorship program essentially gave me access to, it was also a form of a scholarship, but also was like a internship which taught you the basics of computer science. And if you already knew about computing, they would just throw you head on to some projects, of
Okay.
course with mentorship as well. But that's how I essentially got my first internship. That was my junior year of high school.
Wow. Okay.
And I would say that at that time, I didn't really have too much experience with machine learning. Like I was broadly familiar with what machine learning was, but I wouldn't say that I knew like too much about like, oh, what are some of the models that we should be using in
Mhm.
specific situations or
Yeah.
that sort of nature. So um, I'd say that that was like probably one of the most important things that happened to me also because um getting your first internship in college without any experience is hard
It's already
in
hard for
itself.
people to get their
Yeah.
internships like sophomore year.
Yeah, it's
But as a
already
junior in
hard in
high school
itself.
to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that first internship really helps you pick up these other internships later on. And I'm like really grateful for having that opportunity because I think it just helped me streamline the process with getting more internships in college, and it was just a lot easier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How did you find that program out your junior year of high school?
Yeah. So our high school counselor actually sent this email to everybody who was interested in STEM, because everybody in my high school freshman year or like sophomore year has to give some indication like what are you thinking about doing. You don't have to know exactly what you want to do, but if you think that you want to go into medicine or if you think you want to go into engineering, then that can help us craft what types of courses you should be
Okay.
taking throughout high school. If there's any internship or like apprenticeship opportunities, like we could provide those to you, but we need to know like what
They need to know
you
what you're interested in so
interested
they can
in.
give you those opportunities.
Yeah.
Now, just so the audience knows, like what high school did you go to and what part of Illinois was that in?
Yeah, so I went to Rolling Meadows High School.
Okay.
Rolling Meadows High School is in Rolling Meadows, Illinois.
Yeah.
It's in the northwest suburbs of Chicago. I actually grew up in Arlington Heights, which is
Okay.
like extremely close to Rolling Meadows. Yeah, Rolling Meadows was a great school. I think that we had the resources, but a lot of kids just didn't make full advantage or take full
Interesting.
advantage
Okay.
of those resources. Of course, there are some things that advisors and also teachers just did not know about in general. Like for example, USAMO or like AME. My math teacher who like led our math club, he essentially knew about AMC, AME to some degree, but there weren't too many people who did it. So
Yeah.
it kind of required you going out of your way to ask, hey, I want to at least practice for the AMC or try it. Like, how can we go about that?
Yeah. It wasn't handed to you. You kind of had to go out of your way to find these opportunities.
Yeah.
But it sounds like there was a little bit of support with the
Yeah.
guidance counselors giving or presenting everybody that like machine learning stuff in high school.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. It's like, were your parents very supportive during this time and helping you find these opportunities? Was it like family? Was it other community in the bigger area?
Yeah, I'd say that it was mainly my parents. So like my dad, he is into data science and analytics. Like that's his full-time career. He's been doing that for ever since he's been in the U.S. That's what he's
Did he go to
been
college
doing.
in the U.S. or India or somewhere
He
else?
went to IIT in India,
Okay.
and then he moved to the U.S. around like 97 or 90, yeah, like 92, 93, maybe something around then. And he did his master's at University of Alabama
Okay.
in industrial engineering.
Wow. So this guy is like very familiar with computation, engineering, and he kind of had like from a young age. Did he talk? Do you have any siblings, by the way?
No, I don't.
No. Okay. So
yeah.
so he was kind of like putting a lot of his focus on helping you and kind of nurturing your budding mathematical and engineering mind as you were a kid.
Yeah. So he actually was very I'd say laid back. If I was looking for help, he was always there to, provide and support me and help me with whatever I was learning at the time. And if I had any like questions about engineering, I could always go to him and ask him, and he would always give me like great advice. But I'd say like at the beginning, I was like all over the place on what I wanted to do.
Okay.
There was like times where I'd say, oh, I want to do like physics. There's times where I said I want to do only math. There's times where I said, oh, I want to become a mechanical engineer like you.
Wow.
So I really never had a focus on a degree that I wanted to pursue in college until maybe like junior year when I took AP Computer Science. It wasn't my first exposure to computer science, but it was my first exposure to, doing the types of projects that you do in AP Computer Science, or, learning about the types of concepts that you do in AP Computer Science, things like recursion.
Yeah, first time
like
getting these like
iteration.
very formal computer science topics, like first dip into like data structures and
Yeah.
like maybe like had you had experience with other programming languages before then, before doing Java in AP
Yeah,
computer science?
I had worked with Python a little bit.
And the ML stuff?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
when I started doing the ML stuff, I didn't know about Python at the time.
Mhm.
But obviously all these Python packages are really like NumPy or like SciPy. Those are like really big for the machine learning community. So eventually I had to pick up Python, and surprisingly, it wasn't like too bad of a learning curve. Um, it took some preparation because thinking computationally is very different. So it took some time to get used to Python, but then once I got used to Python, surprisingly, like Java, even C and C++ were a little easier to learn just because you had that foundation.
Yeah.
Of course, like there's a lot of things that are much harder about like C++ or like Java. Like the syntax in itself can be really hard to juggle. But yeah, learning my first language as Python was also really great. It also showed me that computing has a lot of power and a lot of application. It doesn't have to only be machine learning. You could do other things.
You can do tons of other things like that. All
Yeah.
right. So I heard you did, or you landed some sort of like Department of Energy scholarship. Can you just tell me a bit about how you got that and your decision to actually break that scholarship?
Yeah. So it's called the DoD SMART Scholarship. SMART stands for Science, Math, and Research for Transformation. So this is a scholarship provided by the DoD. Essentially, what it does is it gives you full tuition, stipend, healthcare insurance, money for books, like whatever you could possibly think of. And essentially, it funds up to 1 to 4 years of your education. You can choose how much funding you want. Once you get the scholarship, you can choose the length. And essentially, the only things that it requires you to do is that every summer that you're available, you should just do an internship with one of the sponsoring facilities. Sponsoring facility is essentially the DoD organization that supports your education.
Okay.
So you do these software engineering, data science types of internships with them every summer that you're available. And then once you graduate from college, you join the DoD full time at that sponsoring facility. And it depends on how how long you took the internship for, or how long you took the scholarship for. That's how long you actually pay back
Okay.
your service.
So
yeah.
what was your decision there? How long did you take the scholarship for?
Yeah, so I took the scholarship for 3 years. So far I only paid like 1 year of college out of pocket. The other three have been funded by the DoD. Um, and yeah, every summer that I've been available, I've been working at a sponsoring facility in San Diego, doing. My first year, I did a software engineering internship. In my second year, it was like more of a data science, machine learning, engineering type of role. So the work has been really interesting, but obviously the pay after graduation is
Yeah.
not great. I think I think for many people who don't have any experience with getting internships or getting really high paying full time positions, because it's not an easy task. It's obviously a great option for people, because you don't really have the stress of wondering where's my full time job going to be after I graduate from college.
You're set. You're set during
you're just
college,
set.
internships, even
Yeah.
after 2 years roughly.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you can just I'd say more so relax. You have internships that you can do. You have a full time job waiting for you. So in that regard, it's pretty good program. But if you're really looking to like maximize how much money you're trying to make after graduation,
Yeah.
or even like during the summer with the amount of money that some internships can pay, I definitely think that if you're more in that realm or in that circle, it probably isn't the best move.
Yeah.
But if it's oh, I just want my college to be paid for, and I just want to do some internships and then have a job afterwards, then it's a great option for a lot of people.
So what are the numbers on this? Like, how much were you paid in your DoD internships, and what was like the salary range after? And just so the audience can kind of understand, like, what was your decision process here? And they covered college, did they cover rent as well?
Yeah, like they give you a stipend every month that you could just then use to pay for.
So
rent.
roughly speaking, like how much support did they give you throughout your 4 years? And then what was like the rough internship / full-time pay range there for the scholarship?
So I'd say like in terms of tuition, like this will differ if you go to a public or private school.
They just cover whatever your tuition is?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'd say like it's roughly around 45,000 to go to Berkeley out of state. So they pay that. They pay you like, it used to be a $25,000 stipend every year. Now it's a $30,000 stipend every year.
For food, rent, books, everything like that. Okay.
Yeah.
So it's like $70K a year or whatever, roughly speaking. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
You know
and then they pay you a little bit more on top of that. Like they pay you like $2,000 for healthcare insurance. They pay you $2,000 like you get every year one time for like books or whatever you need in that regard. But yeah, overall, it's a hefty amount of money. Like,
dude, it's good. I've never heard of anything like this before.
It is a lot of money, and it would obviously be an amazing program if they were willing to negotiate like salaries and negotiate how much people are getting out of college. But they're fairly stern on that. Like I'd say like roughly San Diego also in California in general will pay different compared to if you were in like Oklahoma or something.
Exactly. The cost of living is way different depending on where you are.
So I'd say for places like California, you should be looking at like 60 to 70,000 if you take a DoD job.
Wait, only $60,000 a year, 16 to 70,000 is a DoD job out of school.
Yes. Yeah, in software engineering, not just like in anything
in California.
In California.
Wow.
So it's like very tough for a lot of people first year. The benefit though with this program is that a lot of sponsoring facilities have an incentive where it's like if you stay for a year, we'll just actually bump your salary to like 100,000. So you might stay at like 60, 70,000 for like a few months, and then you will get bumped up to 100. But there's like a lot of bureaucracy and politics that happens with all of these things, and quite frankly, it's very hard to even like control negotiations. Like if you're coming from a school like Berkeley and then you're coming to the DoD facility where they don't have anybody from like Berkeley or anybody from like these T4 type of computer science programs, even then that's probably not convincing enough for them to negotiate. So yeah.
Yeah. So one question I have is, if we just like run the numbers here, like they gave you what, like probably like 80K per year in college,
Yeah.
roughly.
Yeah.
So that's like 320K over the 4 years of college. And then 2 years after, you're getting like, let's say 160K just as a number.
Yeah.
So it's like roughly 400 to 500K over 6 years.
Yeah.
So your average is like roughly 90 to 100K per year.
Yeah.
But you're also in college though.
Yeah.
That's an interesting part.
Yeah.
So, but it's in California. So it's, what I'm learning now is that it's not obvious one way or the other.
Yeah, it's a very tough decision if you decide to
very
break
difficult.
break the contract or not.
What does breaking the contract entail?
Yeah, breaking the contract, it sounds scarier than than it is.
Yeah.
Essentially, it's just I'm gonna leave the program and I have to pay everything back. Which is why when I was recruiting full time this year, I was looking for jobs that would pay higher than what SWE could pay. So that's why I was looking at like quant trading, quant finance types of roles. Not only because like it would put me in a comfortable position where I could pay the DoD back like really easily.
Yeah.
But also like the interest, like having interest in the work. I was like genuinely interested in quant finance. It's a very mathematical type of field. So
yeah.
Also like very computationally heavy. So it would just naturally lend to going to quant finance. So
got it.
yeah.
So in terms of the just one more question on this DoD thing. Did you have to pay 100% of it back, or did you get to keep the internship money that you earned while interning for them?
Yeah,
you did work for them.
Yeah, so you did work for them. Though that type of the money that you make from doing the internships, you don't have to pay back at all.
But it's the tuition and whatever they supported you during college.
Yeah,
got it.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. Kind of like entering the later high school years. Why did you pick Berkeley over Princeton?
Yeah, so I chose Berkeley over Princeton for like a wide range of reasons. I guess the first reason is that, and it might sound kind of dumb, but to be honest, coming from Chicago, I was kind of bored and tired of snow and the winter in general.
At least you're honest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I wanted to go somewhere that the weather was like a little bit better, at least experience different weather for the first time. Like in Chicago, you get all 4 seasons basically, but it would be nice to be in a place that's just sunny all the time.
Yeah.
Or like at least sweatshirt weather most of the time. So California was somewhere that I wanted to go anyways. And I think the second reason why is because Princeton has like really great faculty in math. They're also really strong in computer science, but the ML folks at Berkeley are just a step above.
They're world class.
In terms of machine learning, reinforcement learning, whatever type of machine learning or like deep learning you can think about. Berkeley probably has the top professor there, and so that was one thing, but I think the most important thing that I wanted to get out of a college is a lot of people talk about being handheld when they're at a private school. So like you have a bunch of resources, you could just, like your class sizes are really small, so you can just go and talk to a professor. These things are like really simple to do if you go to a private school, which has a small class size in general, or like the student to faculty ratio is good in that regard. But the thing is with Berkeley, you don't get those types of things. The resources exist, but you just have to go out there and put yourself out there to get those resources. And that's exactly how the real world operates. You're not going to be handheld, or like nobody's going to hold your hand to like help you with assignments or reach out to you to ask if you need help or if you're struggling. And of course, like if that is not the environment for you, then like you should go to a private university or wherever you think that you could be best accommodated. But I really enjoy that part of Berkeley because it just taught me a lot of like intangibles and life skills that you should have if you want to be successful in academia or in industry. Like for example, after your first year at Berkeley, like you have to find housing for yourself.
Yeah.
That's like a hard part in itself. You're like a 18-year-old, 19-year-old, and you don't know how to find an apartment yet, but you learn how to find an apartment yet. Just like, you know, you eventually might have to learn how to cook. That's also an essential life skill. You need to learn how to make connections and, you know, talk to professors, reach out by yourself to get these resources. And again, that's something that is very imperative, just to like be like a successful human being as well. So I really enjoy that part of Berkeley as well. I enjoy that I was able to learn a lot, not just academics, but like a lot of intangibles. And obviously academic rigor here is crazy. Professors in every department are very successful. So it only made sense that if I wanted to get all of these things out of my college experience, that I should go to Berkeley. Yeah.
Got it. Now, kind of like transitioning into that UC Berkeley college environment, you've taken quite a large degree of graduate level courses as an undergrad.
Yeah.
Could you kind of speak about like how many grad classes did you take and how did you end up doing so many?
Yeah. So I'd say like maybe if I had to get a number on top of my head, it would probably be around like 13 to 15.
13 to 15
graduate
math
courses.
Or computer science or both?
Mix of graduate classes in computer science, statistics, and math. Yeah.
And just so the audience knows, like what's your degree right now? Is it bachelor's or is it actually master's as well?
It's only bachelor's.
Okay.
Bachelor's of Arts in computer science. Berkeley doesn't have like bachelor's of science in the College of Letters and Sciences. If you want a bachelor's of science, you have to actually go to engineering school to get a degree in EECS.
Yeah.
So computer science in itself is just like an arts degree. But I was also majoring in statistics, data science, and math.
Yeah.
But I decided not to end up finishing those degrees, mainly because I had interest in specific courses that I wanted to take, and some of the other courses that I was required to take, I was not genuinely interested in them. So I didn't think that
it was drop the degrees.
Yeah, worth the time to take those courses if you're not going to genuinely enjoy them.
So what was it like being surrounded by graduate students and taking all of those classes? And what % of your courses at Berkeley were graduate level classes?
Yeah, so I'd say that taking graduate courses is my first graduate class was very it was not as daunting as it seemed because a lot of undergrads actually took that class. So
what was the class?
It was called Math 202A, Topology and Analysis 1.
Okay. Yeah.
It's like a follow-up to a very standard math class called Real Analysis. So most people take Real Analysis, and then if they want to learn further mathematical analysis, they can take like Topology and Analysis 1, which is like more measure theory type of content. But it's a very popular graduate course for people studying math here. So it wasn't as daunting as it seemed. I was able to like meet a lot of new people and work on like problem sets and all that stuff together with other undergrads. But moving into like statistics courses where there's like less undergrads, there's a few popular ones like Stat 210A tends to be a very popular graduate course for people in computer science, math, or statistics. But then once you move into like Stat 210B, which is like the follow-up course, all the undergrads drop.
Wow.
So I think when I took that course, there's only 3 undergrads.
Okay.
But yeah, and in terms of like the percentage of courses that I've taken that are just graduate courses, I'd say it's probably like maybe around more. It might be more than 50%.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you've taken over 50% grad classes.
Yeah.
Or even like roughly 50% or so.
Yeah.
Wow. What advice would you give yourself if you could go back to your freshman year of Berkeley, specifically with doing well in classes, taking graduate classes? Do you wish you took more grad classes, less grad classes? And kind of talk about like what if you were, re-entering Berkeley. I mean, you're leaving Berkeley right now. It's your final semester.
Yeah.
If you could go back, what advice would you give yourself related to course success?
Yeah. So I'd say one thing that I figured out really early on at Berkeley is, you know, it's always good for you to go and attend your lectures, attend your discussion sections. Um, I was not really great at doing it. Um, but I think that for freshmen, so later on when you're like a sophomore or junior, you might find a different like way of studying that suits you. But during freshman year, it's probably best for you to go to these things because first of all, it introduces you to people in your classes, introduces you to people who are interested in, maybe they are interested in taking graduate courses. You could tag along with them
Yeah.
if you're also interested in the same topics. Um, but also it just gets those study groups for you to use for the next 4 years. Like I know that some of the closest friends that I have now, I've just met through classes. Some of them I met otherwise, but a lot of it was through classes. And of course, it was harder during COVID because I came into college in 2020. It was really hard.
Your first year was COVID.
Yeah, first year was COVID.
Did you come here or did you stay in Chicago? Roughly
I was in Chicago my first semester.
Okay.
And then second semester I came to Berkeley. So it was really hard first semester to meet people. You kind of had to put yourself out there and introduce yourself to people because otherwise people are just going through the motions of oh well, let me just attend class, let me just, attend my discussion section. So I'd say like that's one big component that people should be doing at least their freshman year.
Yes.
Just to get some experience with people and like meet some people and form those study groups and relationships early on. The other thing is I think that studying for exams at Berkeley is also an art in itself because you don't know what type of content or what type of problems that they're going to throw at you during the exam. So I'd say if you focus really hard on getting very strong fundamentals in that class, in whatever class you're taking, you will be successful in that class. Berkeley's like a place, and most colleges are places where you can't really get by too much by just memorizing everything or memorizing the sort like formulas or the concepts in itself. It's going to be really hard for you to be able to solve the problems when there's like a small variation to them. So you should also focus a lot on getting those strong fundamentals. I'd say another thing is there's a lot of classes that are there that are really interesting. Take the time to like find the classes that you're really interested in. You might be interested in like a psychology class that has some aspects of computer science. Take it. It's gonna make you like a better computer scientist. It's also gonna make you more broad in terms of the things that you can think about. And yeah, those are some of the things that I think are really important to know about.
Yeah, for context, you have close to a 4.0 GPA. You've gotten pretty much A's in almost every class you've taken.
Yep.
Even those graduate level classes.
Yes.
So another question I have is, and I experienced this as well, going to college in computer science, you have kind of like a few options. You can do plain CS. You can do maybe like electrical engineering, computer science. You could maybe do math, statistics, data science. If someone is a high schooler or an early college student and they're trying to decide what set or what subset of these, computer science, programming, math degrees to pick, what would you recommend they do? And how do you recommend they think about what to select?
Yeah, so I'd say that there's obviously a ton of options in computer science in itself that you can delve deep into. I'd say you kind of have to categorize yourself into like a few groups. I'd say if you're really interested in maybe machine learning, deep learning, that sort of area, it should um, you should be focusing on maybe pure computer science concepts, because a thing that a lot of people don't understand is that machine learning is also a ton of software engineering. Um, like you want to set up your like training scripts and all these things for machine learning to be very fast and efficient. That requires you to start thinking about like time complexity, space complexity. So it's software engineering as well as design, system design. That's like what a lot of what machine learning is. It's also math and optimization heavy. So I'd say like if you're interested in machine learning, you probably should get a wide grasp in terms of everything. Even a little bit of electrical engineering, like some signal processing, digital processing, that comes up in machine learning a little bit. Um, and I'd say if you're interested more in like pure software engineering, I want to get a software engineering job
Mhm.
after college.
Yeah.
Focus on your fundamentals, like data structures and algorithms. The more CS heavy concepts are like, data structures and algorithms. Always beneficial for you to take like an operating system course or like a programming languages course. Databases, like these are all like very stereotypical computer science courses to take. If you're interested in more of, I like to design circuits, or I like electronics, focus more on EE, and there's like a bunch of things you can do in EE. Like you can do signal processing, you can do a lot of things that have to do with computer architecture are also in electrical engineering. um, and if you're interested in the more like math heavy, like CS theory, uh, it depends on what you're interested in. But I'd say like you should probably try to take as much uh, theory courses as you can. So like take an algorithms course that teaches you about like NP hard, um, or like complexity theory. Take an optimization course. Just expand your knowledge. If you really are interested in theory, the more tools that you have available to you, the better it is. So you should just take a wide breadth of theory.
Yeah.
Also, I'd say that everybody should take a probability course. um, that's a It's very hard to understand probability at first, but once you do understand it, you open up a lot of opportunities for yourself. Not only job opportunities and like career opportunities, but also just in terms of the ways that you can approach computer science, um, are a lot easier if you know about how random things in the world occur. So I'd say that everybody should also take a
Mhm.
probability course. Yeah.
Okay, got it. So, kind of finishing off this one topic, what it seems like is you should base it off of kind of what you're interested in, and then try to gather as much knowledge or classes in that like rough area.
Yeah.
One question I have is if someone is kind of going in as a freshman and they don't necessarily have a specific area or desire in ML or software engineering or AI or hardware, could you just like to set someone up for success in the next 10 years, what like set of majors would you just like give them if it was if they didn't know exactly what they were interested in?
Yeah. So I'd say that if you're regardless if you're interested more in like math or like statistics, or some more mathematically heavy material, I think everybody, regardless of you're like a math major, a statistics major, or physics major, everyone should take some basic computing class.
Okay.
So it doesn't have to be like something crazy. Like I don't expect you to take like computer architecture and learn how RISC-V or anything like that works.
Yeah.
But I think everybody should take like a basic introduction to computer science. This is how you should. Uh, the course should basically teach you how to think like a computer. Um, for example, like a lot of people at Berkeley, regardless of major, take CS61A. That's really a class that teaches you at first, how should I think like a computer? How does a computer process information? How does it store information? And um, maybe if you have more interest after that, you could take like a data structures and algorithms course. But I think that these types of concepts are very important for everybody to know, we're like moving into a more computationally heavy world, and technology is only getting more advanced. So it's only to your benefit to start picking up some of those basic concepts in computer science. Um, but I'd say that if you don't really have a idea of what to go into, you should just focus on what makes you interested in the first place. Is it more math and statistics, or like physics types of things that are more interesting to you? If so, maybe you should just try math for a little bit, or stats for a little bit, or physics for a little bit. If you find yourself liking, um, you know, learning programming languages, or like doing some basic like computer science, maybe you should try out computer science. Of course, computer science is not just like programming,
Yeah.
but it is a big component, and if you enjoy doing that, maybe you should try a little bit of computer science. But I'd say like it's really good for you to explore. Not everybody their freshman year knows what they want to do. I know that like when I came into college, I was doing computer science, but I didn't really enjoy my first class in computer science because, um, it was just very different material compared to, the more math heavy types of concepts that I was exposed to in high school. But then once I took data structures and algorithms, I really enjoyed that class. And then you know I took computer science because it gives you a broad range of computational skills and a wide variety of techniques to approach problems. So it's fine if you don't know what to do at first. Just try exploring as much as you can, and eventually you'll find something that you click with, and hopefully you can do that. But then also make sure to take some of those computational classes on the side, because they'll really benefit you in the end.
Amazing. So kind of transitioning into industry.
Hmm.
You have landed a quant trading offer at Headlands.
Yeah.
Could you tell me a little bit about how you actually got that offer and what your thought process is there in terms of, landing a quant trading job? And if you're open, could you mention the salary range? Doesn't have to be any specifics, but kind of like a range as to what that offer is.
Yeah. So I really got into quant research and quant trading maybe sophomore year. I didn't know about what trading was in the first place. I didn't even know that, there are people on Wall Street that are using algorithms and then, computer science and math just to, beat the market. I didn't know that this was even a thing. So once I learned about, this field, I got really interested in it, started learning some basic finance concepts on the side. I already had like a good foundation in like math, probability, statistics, and optimization. I refined my skills in that a little bit, took a few more classes. Um, and also just like, a lot of quant trading, a lot of quant research is also a lot of data science and computer science. So, you still have to practice like lead code.
Mm.
You still have to practice like data science interviews are mainly like, how do you go through the data science life cycle? So it was mainly prepping for that. And once I felt good enough, started doing some interviews here and there. Um, Eventually, I first started off with like getting internship offers, but those were hard to get. I mean, hard to get, and then also hard to take because of the DoD. And,
Yeah.
so that limited me in terms of like the internships that I could have done. But I didn't really find any problems when it came to finding a full-time job in quant finance. I think like if you don't have experience in quant finance, or if you don't have experience in with finance in general, quant's one of those places where they're very open to taking people who are like very mathematically and computationally inclined, because they can always train you up on the finance. It's not like
It's not rocket science
yeah,
in the
it's
way
not
that
it's not that hard.
seems like it's harder to take those like fundamental math concepts that you've been training your entire life for
Yeah.
almost and imbue those in a person rather than just like teaching some of the language of today and just like the market principles and stuff like that.
Yeah. So
Mhm.
in terms of that, it's a lot easier. Like you need a lot of math and computer science knowledge, but you don't need a lot of finance knowledge.
Mm.
So I didn't find too many troubles when I was looking for a full-time job, even though I wasn't able to do those quant finance internships. Um, but it definitely was harder because there's a bunch of people who have also done quant finance internships, so you had to like stand out. And the way that I stood out is with my math and computational skill set. Taking a lot of grad classes that really impressed like a lot of recruiters, and so they were willing to give me a chance. Um, but yeah, in terms of like total salary, I can say that the range is around like 5 to 700 k total comp. In quant, there's like no concept of stock,
Okay.
so a lot of it's liquid, just like straight salary, a performance bonus, and like a guaranteed signing bonus or something like that.
Yeah.
So it's all like liquid, which is great, but also not great because you get taxed heavily. But
hmm
but yeah.
Okay. If someone came to you, maybe they're, like I said, freshman, sophomore in computer science, and they're interested in getting into this quant game. Maybe they've done some like basic math classes or some good pure math, some good computer science classes. What would you recommend they do if they wanted to, get a quant internship or a quant full-time job? And what is the optimal way to prepare for something like that?
Yeah, I'd say that for someone who's trying to get into quant finance, there's like a few main things that you want to study. I think the number one thing that you want to study is probability and statistics. That's like a very big component of quant finance interviews. A bunch of the questions are just going to be like, well, let's play a game of dice or something like that, and then you could tell me what the expected value is. Or there's like these types of games that you need to be familiar with concepts in probability and statistics. I'm not saying that you have to be like a PhD in statistics or
Mhm.
a PhD in probability theory to be able to pass these interviews. You just have to um, do some basic studying on like what expected value is, what variance is, like what are these different types of distributions that exist, and when should we use them, and just have a intuition about probability. And it's not easy to pick up at first, but the more you practice, the more intuition you'll gain. um, I'd also say that you should, if you can, try to figure out if you're interested more in trading or in research, because those are also completely different paths. For example, if you're a quant trader, you might need to be a little bit more proficient in like being able to solve these probability and statistics questions like on the spot very fast. There might also be like math brain teasers or those types of questions. But if you're more interested in like research, you have to still practice your lead code, data structures, and algorithms. You still need to practice your probability and statistics, but they might also ask you to be more mathematically advanced. They might ask you things in machine learning, things about like linear regression, or like things that you may learn in a basic machine learning or deep learning class. Um, so I'd say like try to first identify if you want to go into trading or research, and if you're interested in both, then really take your first probability and statistics class, take a machine learning class, a data science class, and maybe an optimization class if you can. All of these classes will help you in the end. And then there's like a bunch of great resources that most people recommend. For example, there's a book called The Green Book. It's not called The Green Book. It's called A Practical Guide to Quant Finance Interviews, I think, but it's commonly called The Green Book. That's like one of the, I guess, holy grails when it comes to quant finance. You can really just self study the entire book and do some practice problems from online, and you should probably be good enough to like take a quant finance interview and probably pass, as long as you really practice and strengthen your fundamentals in probability and statistics. You should be good to go on
Mhm.
that end. Yeah.
Um, Kind of on this topic, where do you think most people go wrong when they prepare for their interviews? I know my brother Adil did like tons and tons of interviews. He ended up getting a few offers, but it took a lot of practice and time and effort. Where do you think people mess up when they try to go for quant trading or quant research?
Yeah, I think one of the things that a lot of people don't do well is memorizing solutions. Um,
Yeah.
because a lot of the times what will end up happening is um, if you memorize the solution, somebody might ask you a question that you exactly know how to solve. But now if they ask a small variant, the solution might be very simple. If you actually understood the solution, um, you would be able to make a very small change and then get the answer correct. But if you have just memorized the solution, then it's very hard for you to pass interviews. Um, because a lot of these things are just like, let me ask you one question. I'm going to ask you a harder variant of this question. I'm going to ask you an even harder variant of this question. So it's extremely hard for people to, you know, get the follow-ups if they didn't understand the first question. Um, Even if they were able to solve it, like they didn't really understand the solution. So it's harder for them to, you know, be creative and then make like a small subtle change that can really solve the problem. So I'd say like once you're going through these problems, you have to really understand the solution. um Even like something where you're doing like suite interviews and you're practicing like lead code, again, it's like very hard if you only memorize the solution or just memorize the data structure and don't understand why you want to use that data structure or algorithm. Because like if somebody asks you a follow-up, which happens a lot, then you probably have
You're
no
screwed
idea how to
then.
solve it. Yeah.
So your stance is basically like people kind of overemphasize the importance of memorizing the solutions
Yeah.
and underemphasize the importance of actually understanding the concepts and principles behind the problem.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
So I think that's like one very big component. And if you understand the solutions and understand how to solve the problems really well, and you get like that strong foundation in probability and statistics, I think most people should be able to pass. It's not like it's not a field where you have to be like a genius in probability and statistics to pass. But if you have really strong
Yeah.
fundamentals, then you should be good to go. Yeah.
Kind of talking about your future plans. So you have this offer from Headlands, which is like $500,000 to $700,000, and you also owe the DoD some money.
Yeah. Yeah.
Are you planning on taking the offer or doing something else?
Yeah. I think initially when I got the offer, I was planning on taking that offer and moving to Chicago to do quant research. But recently I've also applied to a bunch of PhD programs in statistics. Very fortunate to have gotten into to a lot of them as an undergrad. Um, and I think I will be taking one of these PhD offers. I probably will be going to Cornell in the fall
Okay.
to do my PhD in statistics and data science. I'm really excited about that. Like I've been wanting to do a PhD for a long time, and even if I did go into quant trading or quant finance, I would have eventually left to probably do a
Really?
PhD
Okay.
again. Um, it just fits with the career goals that I have in mind. So, yeah, I'm really excited about that. Also,
Yeah. So you've turned down this, like, most people at this age, 22, 23, have never seen that amount of money in their entire life.
yeah.
What draws you so strongly to a PhD?
Yeah, so I'd say that the first thing that's really important to me is that I really enjoy research types of work. Um, so I do research here at Berkeley, both theoretical and applied work. And I'd say that, you know, compared to some of the things that you might do in like SWE or some of the things you might even do in quant where you're programming a lot and coding a lot. Um, Research is one of those fields where you can, you know, you have like freedom to explore and be really creative with the solutions that you're coming up with. It's a lot of reading and a lot of literature review, a lot of experimentation as well, but it's also a lot of creative problem solving, and a lot of use of more advanced mathematics that you might even more advanced than like what you might see in quant finance. Um, and in general, I just like really enjoy statistics. I've enjoyed the graduate statistics classes that I've taken here at Berkeley, and I really want to expand on my knowledge in those courses, and also like have the opportunity to do research, like deep, thorough research, and contribute to the field. Um, and also like in terms of my career aspirations, like there people talk a lot about quant finance. They talk a lot about how much money you could possibly be making in quant finance, but people don't talk about how much money you can make as a research scientist
Mhm.
at like a Google DeepMind or like an
Yeah.
OpenAI.
What are some of those numbers?
If you come from like a good PhD program, like Cornell, Berkeley, MIT, Stanford, like the typical types of programs that people think about,
Yeah.
you have some good publications and good research. It doesn't have to be like you have like 50 publications, because like then you probably shouldn't even be a PhD student. You probably should just
Yeah,
start
you're already
off.
done. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But yeah, as long as you have like some good publications and you come from a good school doing work in like machine learning or machine learning adjacent type of work, you could probably make like also like 450 plus. Um, so it might start off a little lower, but like
Mhm.
as
You'll catch up
you'll
over
catch up.
time.
And if you're at like a really, that's like if you're at like a maybe like a Google Research or a Google Brain type of place or a Google DeepMind. If you're at like OpenAI or Anthropic, you still need some few more years of experience. But I know that their research engineers or like research scientists, they probably make like around like 900 plus,
Yeah.
which is actually also insane.
Mhm. As a
Um,
researcher,
yeah, as
to
a
earn that
researcher,
kind of money. Because like
yeah,
professors are, compared to the researchers in industry, compared to professors who are doing research at universities, are like woefully underpaid.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So,
Mhm.
so that's my main reason
Mhm.
for going to into a PhD program. That's like what I am trying to do. My other like option is I also really enjoy teaching, um, and I also love research. So it's probably also a good idea to like think about academia still. I know academia also doesn't pay that well.
Yeah.
Some schools are getting a little bit better at it. Like Cornell now, I think if you're like assistant professor, you could make like 100 if you have like a good CV and all that. So it's not like completely bad. Obviously,
Yeah.
it's still worse compared to
If you
like if
compare it to
you're
industry or whatever,
yeah,
but
industry
it's
or quant
mhm.
also. But it's also an option that I'm considering. So I think that the PhD, having a PhD in itself, also if you're able to finish it in 5 years, of obviously like people say that's probably one of the hardest things to do is like
Yeah.
finish a PhD in like a computer science or like statistics or math. Um, but if you're able to persevere through it, there's a lot of options that become available to you that aren't available just with like a bachelor's.
Mhm. So it sounds like you're making kind of like a long-term decision in terms of, it seems like you kind of enjoy that research and that MLAI stuff
Yeah,
more than you might necessarily enjoy quant
yeah,
research. And
yeah,
that's what the decision is there. And it's also like, it's not like you're getting nothing when you're doing a PhD. You
yeah,
can even earn a lot more later on. It's more of like a
yeah.
long-term thing. You touched a bit on the fact that you're doing research right now at Berkeley.
Mhm.
Can you kind of just like at a high level explain how you got into that and any advice you have for students who are interested in doing research in their undergrad?
Yeah. So I started doing research my freshman year of college. Again, uh, depends if you go to a private school or a public school. On it depends on either of those, because if you go to a private school, it's a lot easier for you to just like approach the professor, be like, hey, I really enjoy your class. Like, can we do some work together? And they're more than likely going to be able to help you out. At Berkeley, there's like a very centralized process. You could cold approach different professors or
Yeah.
graduate students,
Mhm.
um, but sometimes that doesn't work. They have like programs here at Berkeley called like URAP, which is like undergraduate research apprenticeship program. A bunch of professors there post like, this is the work that I'm working on. I'm looking for an undergrad to help me with this. You can apply to them. There's like I haven't heard of technical interviews, but there are like behavioral interviews at least. Um, and That's like one way. There's also like data science discovery at Berkeley. A lot of these programs will have like similar types of opportunities that you can engage with. But I actually went through data science discovery my freshman year. Um, and I started off working in computational chemistry. So like more machine learning for the natural sciences. Essentially, like that experience was more like, we're trying to find these like very nice catalysts for renewable energy. And we have like these models that we use, but they're extremely slow, and we want to pick up the slack on how slow these models are. So we are gonna try using machine learning. So that was my first experience with like actually using ML in like a research setting. Um, I then went on to do like a few like computer vision type of research projects with like professors at Stanford and University of Southern California. And then eventually I found the lab that I'm currently in, which is with Professor Ian Carmichael. He's an assistant professor here at Berkeley. Also, I think a visiting professor at UCSF, working on a field called computational pathology and computational precision medicine. Essentially, all these fields is how can we use like computer vision, machine learning techniques for a wide range of tasks that have to do with precision healthcare. So things like cancer detection, or like, is this piece of tissue benign or malignant or something like that. Um, so it's been really interesting because you can't employ just standard computer vision algorithms on these types of things. So it's like very novel work and very active research. I also work a little bit with Ryan Tibshirani here at Berkeley. He's like a very big name in statistics. His dad, or yeah, his dad's Robert Tibshirani, who, if anybody knows about like lasso or like L1 or L2 types of regularization, it's like a very big thing in statistics. He was actually the creator of that.
Wow.
And that paper has like, I don't know, like 15,000 citations now. He's like a very big name in statistics. So yeah, it's been really great working with Ryan. He actually does a lot of the work that I'm interested in doing during my PhD. And so like I talked to a lot of members in his group in his lab. Um, and that's been like a very great experience. He wrote like, both him and Ian wrote a lot of recommendation letters for me for PhD programs. So that was really great, and I'm really grateful to have them to talk to. But I'd say, yeah, if you're interested in research, um, there's always opportunities for you. You just have to, find them. Uh, a lot of the times, like the department will have like a website for, if you're interested in research, you can go look at these opportunities and try to apply for them, or even maybe like email professors. Um, I know that there's also opportunities for REUs, which is like research experience for undergrads at different schools. So if you want to like explore going to another university to do research, those opportunities are also available.
So one thing we haven't touched upon is the fact that you actually run a startup with your dad and your uncle.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like, we've gone through grad classes, research, PhD, quant, a little bit of SWE. Can you talk a little bit about how that startup began, and what's the process there, and what does that look like right now?
Yeah. So I can give you a little bit of backstory on how the startup kind of evolved. So we started off just seeing like the rise of LLMs. There's a lot of use cases for large language models, and my uncle had worked at a company called TriNet, and essentially they're like a standard HR company. If you know of like Rippling or similar companies, they do similar types of work, and a lot of people who are employees at companies, they have like this employee service center. So this service center gives them the power to, look up things about their healthcare insurance. They can look at things about their dental insurance, or like medical insurance, or like how much that they have available to like spend. Um, and many of the times, if you want to get information about that types of stuff, you have to either comb through a bunch of documents, uh, documents that are like 200 pages long with a bunch of legal terminology that you might not understand, or you have to contact like a healthcare representative or a HR representative who can help you. And we thought that we can make this process a lot more streamlined by using LLMs, because these LLMs, they can just comb through a bunch of data in a few milliseconds and then give you an answer. Um, Whereas like traditionally you might have to go to like a HR representative and then go through like waiting on like a phone line, waiting for somebody to get to you. So that's really where um, this product really started off. And at the time, I barely had any experience with like deploying LLMs at scale, or like even pre-training or fine-tuning or doing any of these things with LLMs. So I had to learn a lot, and it's been a great experience so far. We're in talks with selling this as a service, like a B2B SaaS type of product. So yeah, it's been like a great experience so far. I've learned a lot about business in general, startups in general,
Yeah.
and then just like how to learn about new technologies also.
Mhm. Yeah. What advice do you have to people who are actually, I know many other people are interested in, starting a company as a computer science or data science, software engineering kind of person. What advice do you have to those people? And what are things that you wish you knew a year ago or so when you started this company?
Yeah, so I'd say like one of the things that people who are trying to work on a startup should be looking at is taking advantage of all the different types of technologies that are out there. You'd be surprised that there are some technologies that you've probably never heard of that could probably solve problems that you have in your startup. So it's not necessarily always about you know figuring out how do I create my own solution to solve this problem, but also figuring out how do I use different components that are already available so I'm not reinventing the wheel all the time. Um, the other thing is, I think it's very important for you to do market research on the types of startup that you're trying to create. If you don't know your market and you don't know what types of competitors exist in your market and what features they have available already, you will be, first off, wasting time, and also your product won't be as valuable as you would want it to be. So I think that's a skill in itself that I didn't know how to do. And if I had to go back, I'd say, okay, you should probably learn how to do market research, because market research is very important. It's not also only important for startups. It's important for like anything you want to do. If you want to like um, even help the company that you're working at, if you have a great idea for a new feature that doesn't exist on the market, that could benefit your company a lot. Also, it could benefit you in the long run as well. So I think that's like a very important skill to have, is market research. Also, like being able to communicate your technology and the impact that it can have at a very high level without going into the low level details of how it works. You might be like very uh inclined to like go ahead and be like, oh, this is like I'm working with React, I'm working with Angular, I'm working with like this Firebase database that I'm using, or like NoSQL, throw out all these jargon terms. But at the end of the day, the shareholder who is going to invest in your company doesn't care about the technologies that you're using. They care about how you're transforming the technologies you're using and what impact it has on the user base that you're trying to solve a problem for, right? So I think that these are all skills that are very necessary to have if you want to build a successful startup. You have to know how to do market research, know how to communicate your findings and why they're important, and then also just be able to communicate with people in general. That's also a very important skill, because at the end of the day, you need to sell your product for why it's important. And there's specific ways to go about that. And it's a very hard skill to pick up. But yeah, I'd say getting a focus on that and then practicing those would be very helpful for you if you want to build your own startup.
Yeah. So one more thing on this topic. Would you recommend, let's say someone has the goal of starting a successful company or making a startup, would you recommend they spend, let's say they're a sophomore or junior in college, maybe a computer science student, would you recommend they spend an afternoon, just pick something and just go for it? Or would you recommend they, on the other side of the spectrum, they spend years like learning, exploring before they find a topic and then they go for it?
Yeah, I'd say the one of the cool things or like nice things about startups is like you can basically work on whatever you want. Um, I'd say like people who are interested in startups, it's very hard to get a great idea, but once you have that idea, you should just start going with it and put your effort. I think like in the early years, like when you're first starting out, starting to learn how to build in general, it's great for you to like learn these different technologies, learn, um, how to market, learn how to, communicate with people. Um, these are all like key fundamental like things that you should be knowing how to do. Um, but once you have that, you can basically work on whatever you're interested in. Let's say that you see a market or a feature that doesn't exist and you think it would be very beneficial to people, go ahead and work on it. I think that it would be like a if it doesn't work out in the end, at least you tried working on something
Yeah.
and you got experience working on something end to end as well. And that's like a very valuable skill for not only building a startup, but also just getting a job in the end, if that's what you want. Like that's like a very valuable skill is like I can build something end to end. Just give me the idea and I can build it.
Mhm.
That's like a very important thing. I think it's a very hard thing to acquire too, because like if you're a computer science major, there's like a lot of skeleton code that they give you, or there's either skeleton code that they give you, or they tell you step by step, like this is how you should like be approaching this problem. Um, but that's not available to you once you have an idea and you want to build it out. So I think that building a lot in itself is something that you should be doing a lot if you really want to have your own startup, and practice those skills that I talked about before. But also, once you get an idea and you think it's a great idea, you talk to other people, you do your market research, you figure out, oh, yeah, this is a great idea and it addresses a gap in the market. I think you should just go for it. In the worst case, it doesn't work out. Again, you tried, you got experience, and then you can reiterate and um, fix the things that didn't go so well the first time. So, yeah.
What's the biggest challenge you faced throughout this whole process in the last 4 to 5 years? And what did you use to actually overcome that challenge?
Yeah. Um, I'd say one of the biggest challenges I think that I had at first was actually asking for help. That was very hard for me to do at the beginning. I think it's hard for a lot of people because like from my situation, like when I came from high school, like I was like the best student in my district at math, or I was like the best student in my school at math, um, best student at computer science. Like I was always the person that was helping other people. Um, but once I got to college, like I wouldn't say I struggled academically, but I definitely struggled in some classes, like here and there. Was still able to do great in those classes, but I think that if I learned to communicate and learn to ask for help a lot earlier, I think like a lot of things would have worked out better for me. And I'm really glad that I learned how to ask for help early on, because um now I ask for help all the time. Like in research, um I am not like a PhD level researcher yet,
Yeah.
or near like how a professor is supposed to be doing research. So I always make sure to ask for help from my advisors, also like the PhD students that I work with, and I ask a lot of dumb questions sometimes, or maybe I think that they're dumb questions, but they're good questions. And these are things that like I was afraid to do in the past. Like when I was a freshman, I'd be like, oh, if I ask a dumb question, like I'm gonna look stupid in front of like people.
Yeah.
Um, but then I realized like there's probably a bunch of other people who have the same dumb question, or it might not even be a dumb question, right? Like maybe it's a very great question that somebody's also wants to ask, but they just haven't done it yet. So I think that asking for help, asking for help, asking a lot of questions, also being very curious to learn are a lot very big key things that everyone should have in mind. Um, and I think that if you really have that intellectual curiosity and also are willing to ask for help, uh, you'll see like a lot of great things happen. Um, and yeah, so I'd say like those are the biggest things that I learned how to engage with. Yeah.
Yeah. What advice do you have for young people today? Young people meaning listeners to this podcast. Mentioned them many times, probably like 16 to 18 or 16 to 19 years old, probably interested in tech, probably interested in computer science. What advice do you have for them in general in today's world? I mean, the world today is so different with LLMs, with GPT, everything that's happened in the last few years. What advice do you have for them in general? And this could be career advice, this could be productivity advice, things that you've learned that you think they should know.
Yeah, so I'd say like the first things I'm gonna carry over from like what I said for what challenged me in the past 5 years. I'd say that be intellectually curious, be willing to like learn about new things. Some of the things that you might learn about will genuinely not be interesting to you, but I think that if you take the some time and effort to actually learn about them at like a very high level, I'm not saying to like you have to be a complete expert in like system design or a complete expert in like operating systems, but at least if you get like the general view and the general concepts that are there, you'll see that it not only makes you a better computer scientist or a better software engineer, but it just makes you a better problem solver in general. You'll be able to like pull from a lot of different subjects that somebody might not have seen that I can pull from the subject and solve this problem. So I think that that's like the number one thing is to be intellectually curious. The number two thing again is ask a lot of questions. Again, don't be afraid to ask like what you may think is a dumb question because 99% of the time it's not a dumb question. Um, and somebody else will have that exact same question to ask. And you'll see that asking a lot of questions also makes you better with the material because you're essentially just going deeper into the material than what the professor is even talking about sometimes. So I think asking a lot of questions is also another big thing, another big advice that I'd give to people. Number three, I'd say is make sure you ask for help and always try to surround yourself with people who are like smarter than you. Um, I think that if you're always the smartest person in the room, you will probably not learn as much as you possibly can. I think always surrounding yourself in a room where there's a lot of people smarter than you, you'll get a lot of insights that you might not have known about like in the past. So I think that that's like a very big thing to also know. Um, and I'd also say I also say that make sure, regardless of what type of, if you are sure that you're going to pursue tech, or if you're sure that you want to pursue something in the sciences like physics or chemistry or whatever, I definitely think that everybody should learn about technology, like learn basics of computer science, basics about how to program, because it'll only maximize the productivity that you gain in your life. Um, and also learn about like AI in general. I think that like learning about AI is something like there's like a bunch of things coming out with like new LLMs. There's OpenAI released like a text to video model.
Sora.
Like, yeah, Sora.
Yeah.
Like there's a bunch of things that are coming out in AI that um, will make you more productive. And I think that you don't need to know exactly how those applications work, but if you know how to use them, it can empower you to do like greater things, make you more productive, and just make you learn faster as well. So I think that that's also another thing that people should learn about also.
So what's next for you, Sunny? I know you mentioned you're doing a PhD. What are your long-term 5 to 10 year goals? What are you, 22?
22, yeah.
22? Let's say you're looking at yourself when you're 30 to 32. Where would you like to be?
Yeah, so I think that I would ideally like to be some sort of like research scientist. Maybe even like at Berkeley, a lot of software engineers at Google actually teach some of the courses here. Like one of the classes that I'm taking this semester, networking, is taught by a senior staff software engineer.
Wow.
So even coming back to Berkeley or wherever and maybe in teaching a little bit, I think that would be really great. You know, I have gained so much out of like the interactions I've had with professors and some of the things that I've learned from them. So I think that it would be great to like even come back to Berkeley and give back what the knowledge that I've learned in industry as well. But yeah, I'd say in the next like 5 to 10 years, hopefully research scientists at like OpenAI or Anthropic, something like that, doing some cool ML stuff. And yeah, maybe I'll be one of the inventors of like a new like ML like algorithm or something like that. That would be really cool. But yeah, I'm looking forward to that as well. Yeah.
All right. Thank you for coming today, Sunny.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, I really appreciate it.
That's it for today's episode of the Liftoff podcast. Thank you so much for watching. Leave a comment down below or subscribe to the channel if you're interested in seeing more podcasts just like this. And finally, if you want to stay updated with me, subscribe to Thoughtful Thursday. It's my weekly email newsletter where I break down one lesson I learned that week, as well as 2 or 3 of my favorite books, articles, TV shows, podcasts, anything I found valuable and would like to share. You can subscribe anytime at amanmanazir.com/newsletter or at the link in the description. People have told me it's the best newsletter they've ever subscribed to. Thank you so much, and always remember, the night is darkest before the dawn. I'll see you in the next one.